introduce you now to my dear, dear friend, Richard Kraft, who I've known almost all my life. And very briefly, I would just like to say that this conversation started out of a question that was asked here in our little anthroposophical group in St. Petersburg, Florida. And the question was, what exactly is this mystery that occurs in the springtime when the sun enters Aries and the moon enters Taurus? And how does that influence our inner life and our connection to the elemental world and to the to the forces that we work with the earth as gardeners, and as gardeners of our souls also. And the two teachers that have inspired Richard on his path, his lifetime path, are Rudolf Steiner and Omram Mikhail Ivanov, who both spoke about this day and how it influences our possibility to create the philosopher's stone within us. And Richard is one of these rare people who has dedicated his entire life from the beginning to the pursuit, really, of this work that we do, living between the forces of the earth and the cosmos, and how we integrate that through the harmonies and the rhythms, which are found in music. Richard started his life as a very disciplined, classically trained concert pianist on the East Coast of the United States.
And became quickly undisciplined.
And quickly undisciplined. And when he was 16, he discovered the work of Rudolf Steiner. And I might be exaggerating a little bit here, but when he graduated from high school, he decided before he would enter the more disciplined training of academia, he needed to go on a journey. And this journey was to find the mysteries of Orpheus. And so I think he escaped his household with a backpack and found his way to Europe, on his way to the Black Sea to find these mysteries. And on the road there, had a different destiny and was picked up on the road by a sister from the community of Omram Mikhail Ivanov, and then began his work with the second teacher. And that is where Richard discovered biodynamics, was working on the farms for the spiritual community of Omram Mikhail Ivanov. And he learned about astrology and farming together in his very young early years. And I remember as a child, at night, Richard would go into the great hall where there was a beautiful piano. And when everyone was asleep in the dark, he would sit down and he would play.
Why weren't you asleep? You should have been asleep.
Because, So this is the path that Richard was put on from the time he was born, really. And now we're so lucky. We're so lucky to have this incredible musical being who has understood the starry world and the earthly life in a very authentic way, share with us the magic of this moment, of this day that is before us, depending on where you are on Earth, stretching between April 19th and April 21st. So we'll have a quick moment of silence, and my friend Kriya next to me will light a candle, and then Richard can take his entry on his own time with his invocation.
So, my dear friends, within this circle of open souls, of open hearts, we come together and enter into the mystery of who we are, the mystery of life, the mystery of creation, and allow ourselves to receive the guidance, the inspiration, and we free our imaginations to create images that are intimately connected to our soul journey. And since the soul is collective and resonates always on a collective frequency, it brings us automatically into.
It cares about the soul.
Emily gave me some malachite to work with so it gets some fun.
Is everything okay? That's good. I like these frequencies. It brings us into a frequency that is collective. And each
Please, everybody, mute your devices.
Beautiful. And these frequencies, they receive from everywhere, especially now. Especially now. Yet we're opening ourselves more and more to the unseen world. The unseen world and how that unseen world becomes visible. And as we open ourselves into the unseen world becoming visible, automatically we enter into the visibility becoming invisible. And in this alchemical work, this was known as solve and coagula. So solve is going from the dense, the physical, the visible, and entering once again into something more subtle. And solve, that's solve. Coagula is going from the subtle realms and becoming more and 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 more concrete. So these two processes reflect each other differently depending on the plane of consciousness in which they're involved in. So we're going to be looking, first of all, at the big picture. This is something that Rudolf Steiner adores. Those who have studied his work know that almost all the time he starts with the big picture. The big picture, the big picture, the big picture. In other words, the incarnations of Earth. Because without understanding this process of coagula, going from the most subtle to the most concrete and dense in which we are now immersed, we cannot understand going from this density in which there are veils and layers and layers and layers and layers, and freeing ourselves and entering into the subtle planes. So this is the work of the Philosopher's Stone. And this is in essence the work of biodynamic farming. Biodynamic farming is opening up a channel so once again we can receive here on Earth the currents, the energies, the radiations, the emanations, the vibrations from the spiritual hierarchies that are constantly circulating, that have entered into a density around the Earth since the Earth has entered into its present incarnation as a living being, since it left this incarnation of the moon and entered into something a little more denser, and we can enter into that perhaps, in 45 minutes. What do you want? Nothing can be explained, but this is where your imagination starts. Every one of us has a common heritage. We all have come through these spiritual hierarchies. We have come through this process in our unique ways. This diversity of human experience is what enriches the human soul. So allow your imaginations to go to this moment of origin, because this is what the Philosopher's Stone and what we're talking about this day of the sun in Aries and the moon in Taurus is going to do for us. Because everything in our universe that we know, let's say our Milky Way galaxy, in which the zodiac is, you could say, the circle, what embraces the creative process, is from this spiritual union between the sun in Aries and the moon in Taurus. That's how the other signs have come in. It was in the beginning. In the beginning, there was the Word, the Logos, the light. It emanated from the unseen, from the mystery. Ein Sophor, from light with endless, infinite light, and came through the portal of Aries as a solar essence. Of course, it wasn't the sun as we know it now. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Utilize our imaginations to enter into this creation in which we live at every moment at sunrise. We live this moment. So as the sun enters into Aries, once again, this moment is relived in planetary consciousness, echoed through all the spiritual hierarchies. And this word, this logos, this light, the seed of creation needs to be received. Oh, Taurus. And if you look at the icon, look at Aries. You see, with the horns like this in Taurus, whoop, and they join. They come together. And this is the base, the foundation of the two biodynamic principles in which Rudolf Steiner felt guided as an absolute necessity. Imagine in 1919 or 20, I don't know. I'll always make an error with dates and stuff like that, where he absolutely knew that if humanity was going to be continued on this path, how would they possibly nourish themselves? How could they possibly receive these elements? So he felt absolutely guided that he needed to put into conscious human thought form and give it an envelope, an actual material form, in which, once again, these energies could be received. So we have these two energies. We have the 501 of the sun in Aries coming, attracting all the time these currents that are coming from the higher realms. You know, you think about the millions and millions and billions and billions of years, but that's linear time. Soul time is different. It overlaps, it interweaves. And it's through our soul consciousness that we enter into a soul memory, memory, the story of our soul, the feminine principle, Ori, the story of our soul. We're able to enter into that story through our memory, our soul memory, and once again activate exactly what the 501 does. And that memory, that energy, needs to be received. The 500. It's bringing forth the Christ consciousness that has descended into the core, into the deepest part of our unconsciousness. And then at the springtime, at this time in which the energy, this circulation of the Christ consciousness that is constantly moving in the etheric plane from the center of the sun to the center of the earth, to the surface of the earth, back to the center of the sun. These are the equinox and solstices points. This is the celebrations that were invited in, and they were consecrated, they were created by initiates. Why? Because they knew with the conceptual realities in which our minds, which were needed to understand the Earth's incarnation right now, entering into a density that's dense, that will be even denser as we go along, was absolutely necessary. Yet with this development of the minds, we would lose connection with the subtle worlds. So we needed to have rituals, rites, celebrations, in order to activate once again our abilities to receive this endless flow that's happening. The endless flow. The next sign of the astrology, Gemini. So Gemini is portrayed as two columns, yet in reality, it's the Cadeus of Hermes. It's a figure eight, with the currents coming from heaven to earth to heaven. So that's our role as biodynamic farmers. Our garden is a caduceus, or Sabrina, pronounce that correctly, please. How do you pronounce that?
Caduceus.
Thank you. See, this is my teacher. She's always been my teacher in life. You think I'm older than her, but no, she's my teacher. I'm the little kid. So that element of Hermes. See, as a student, I never really listened to my teachers. So that element is the role of the biodynamic farmer. To create that connection. So at springtime, the Christ current comes up to the surface of the earth. And if the earth has received the proper emanations, this magnetic envelope coming from the feminine principle that we all have in us. Thank you, Skippy, our little dog. Then at that time, it's able to receive once again this thrust of creation. It's never the same. Creation never repeats itself. Ever. It's always new. So in this renewal, we're able once again to create this circulation. That's a garden. And we want to go in that garden. We want to play in the garden. We want to elaborate in the garden. And we want to allow the garden to reflect to us the work, the alchemical work that we need to do upon ourselves. So this is the work of the Philosopher's Stone. It has to go through the color black. It has to be cooked. I think we all know what it's like to be in the cooking pot. Huh? It's always nice to come out. But we all know in our life what that's like. So this is the alchemical work that we have the process to do now. So we're on the verge in sidereal planetary patterns, but it doesn't really matter to me because we're talking about cosmos. Each one, sidereal and tropical, has its means of communication. I work a lot with archetypes. So in archetypes, I find tropical astrology to have the springtime at March 20th is very important. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What's important is our relationship to creation. And how are we as conscious human beings now interacting? So we have this possibility in sidereal planetary aspects on, as Sabrina invited us to, on the 19th and 20th, to participate consciously in this alchemical cosmic event that happens each year. So, how can we do that? First thing is to understand that creation is alive. It's intelligent. And it can communicate to us the means in which we can best serve creation at that time. So the first thing is to open up and receive guidance. The second, obviously, because we're in this era of the dawning of Aquarius, and especially on April 26th, there is an event that's an importance for us all, especially living in the United States in tropical astrology, that the planet Uranus will be entering into Gemini for 7 years. Gemini is the host sign for the soul consciousness of the United States. United States has come, it was created as a container to link heaven and earth. Of course, it doesn't look necessarily like that right now, but what does? What does in human consciousness? So we can let go of any of those ideas and enter into this work. So in this work, we absolutely have the possibility to go much deeper into understanding that the currents that are coming now at this moment, these solar currents, are collective. So coming together as a group is a good thing. And if we are in the biodynamic community, if we are, and we do have the possibility to work with these preparations, know that 501, during this time period, at sunrise, is extremely active. And if we can put our consciousness in there as a collective energetics and vibrations, then the work we can do in humanity is enormous, because humanity is a garden, and every single human soul is a plant, has its essence. So, in the relationship that I have with Sabrina, when my wife and I, Greta, lived at her mom's home for a short period of time in California, we created flower essences together. So this is what we're doing now. We're creating essences, and these essences have a power, have a quintessence that's beyond anything we can possibly imagine. Imagine, in the time of Joshua ben Joseph, and during that time period, essences, essential oil, was a commodity that was even greater than gold. So just think what we can do with soul essences. Soul essences is a power that's extraordinary. So 501, the preparation 501, that's crystalline, made of crushed silica, is working with soul essences. It's working in the garden of our soul. And by spreading that essence out, by stirring that, creating a vortex, and then disrupting that vortex and stirring in the opposite sense, creating consciously chaos, we're increasing the vibrational plane, its possibility to act upon soul consciousness. And at that time, the garden of humanity, as well as our own proper garden, inside and outside, increases. So this is a means in which we're creating a particle of the Philosopher's Stone. So today, just think today that the daily thought from the work of Omar Mikhail Ivanov that's given each day. There's a thought that's taken from his lectures that's been established by his publication company called Prosveta, is on the Philosopher's Stone. How is it possible? So imagine a prospector sifting for gold through the sands of a river, gradually becoming rich, speck by speck. Isn't that an extraordinary image? That's me talking now. The sands of a river, the sands of time. That's our soul memory, and we're constantly sifting through that. Constantly sifting through that. So we're prospectors, sifting through our soul memory for particles of gold. Well, what is gold? Well, if we look and see what gold is, what does he say, Rudolf Steiner? Rudolf Steiner says, when the earth was still a sun, in other words, this was its incarnation, her incarnation as a sun, the gold was sunlight. So gold was sunlight when the earth was, and we were beams of light, obviously. It was only by splitting off from the sun that the earth became so cold that the rays of light remaining in it solidified into gold. So that's when it became its next incarnation, the moon. It did so by becoming colder. The miner still knows this, and he treats the gold in this way. On the moon, the gold became a little more rigid than light, obviously, than it was on the sun. And it ran in streams on the surface of the moon. Well, the astronauts just went to the dark side of the moon, you see. Did they see the streams in the etheric plane of gold? Is this the consciousness that we can introduce now into humanity through the magic faculty that we have of creating images? Is that possible? Can we do that? That would be extraordinary, don't you think? Well, this is what's awaiting those who would like to work together on the Philosopher's Stone and work together with these two main preparations of 501 and 500. So, on Earth it became veins of gold and crossed the Earth as the veins of blood cross the man. Is that an image or what? So the veins of gold inside the Earth is our blood. That's what our blood, this is now we're at the essence of the Philosopher's Stone and the essence of biodynamic farming is allowing the element of carbon to become crystalline. Is it possible for us to imagine that our garden, the earth that we touch, that its nature is not always the same? That it's different? That its essence, its quintessence can be crystalline? It can return back into this state. And that's what Rudolf Steiner has invited us into. That the next incarnation, the incarnation in which the earth will enter into the incarnation of Jupiter, of course not the planet Jupiter, the hierarchy, the spiritual hierarchy in which the planet represents its physical body, that it can become once again a human being radiating light. That's our destiny, to become rays of light. And the destiny of the earth is to become a sun. Consciously. So that's what we participate when we spread the preparation 501, silica, crystalline energy, a solar essence, And this solar essence, what are we doing? We're working with Archangel Michael, the present regent planetary consciousness of the earth that's risen. This being has also risen into a whole nother ball game, a whole nother field. So we're participating in that, and we're putting that into the etheric realms of the earth. What can be greater than that? So I invite you all, consider that. Consider working with that. Consider opening up yourselves to the possibility, that's all. Just the possibility. And those that have more consciously worked with this you can assist others that haven't digested this material yet. We all know what it was like to start taking mouthfuls of this enormous field of creation. We all know how sometimes challenging it was to digest. So in that, one of the most extraordinary possibilities we have is to support each other. Isn't that amazing? To support each other, to be kind, to be good, to be generous, to be open, to open our hearts, to soften our earth. So this is the role of the Preparation 500. It's to become kind, become forgiving, become understanding, become tolerant, become open and soft and yielding and vulnerable. So these two work together, and it would take a whole nother time to go deeper into that. But this is really the work that we have in front of us now. So look at the icon of Aries, look at the icon of Taurus, link yourselves up with the solar presence within you, outside of you. Start entering into this quintessence of sunrise when it's the moment that the 501 is spread out through the garden physically in the physical plane. It's done before sunrise, because that's when it's optimum. This force, this crystalline force, is optimum. Well, if it's that in the physical plane, imagine how it is on the spiritual plane for us. Wouldn't it be great to awaken for sunrise every day and receive once again, more consciously, this crystalline energy that's coming? And since we're working with these energies, the Christ consciousness here on earth through all our experiences, incarnational experiences, this is the reality of the Christ coming into the center of the earth. It's not something outside of ourselves. We're talking about incarnation. We're talking about coming to earth and working on our experiences. And what are we introducing? Oh, Piscean energy, goodness, forgiveness, kindness, love, the cosmic ocean of love. So we're creating an environment that can receive to the best of its ability the maximum of vibrations coming from heaven. So we become ourselves a magic wand, in which the Philosopher's Stone becomes the foundation of our temple of the New Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the jewel of peace. Can we become jewels of peace on the crown of humanity? So, how are we doing, Greta? We're good? Okay. So, we're doing very well. And what I am thinking now, which happens pretty rarely, I think, so is to kind of look at a little bit more the opportunity to embrace more consciously the periods of solstice and equinox. What that does, these 4 points. So in tropical astrology, the sun in Aries and the moon in Taurus this year took place on the spring equinox. Imagine that. This dawning right on the spring equinox. How powerful that is. And now, once again, we have the possibility right on the cusp in tropical astrology of the sun going from Aries into Taurus. These points are extremely important. The change of astrological portals, domains, are extremely important. So at the same time, as I said before, the planet Uranus is entering into Gemini. It's activating the essence of freedom, the quality in which humanity, the spiritual quality that humanity is giving to our entire solar system, all the different beings that are there. We do have something to give. Believe it or not, we don't just receive. All of life has been prepared for us, so we too can give something back. And that's our freedom, our liberty to participate consciously in creation. By how? Through our joy. Human beings have an extraordinary gift. We can laugh and we can cry. Imagine that. And now animals are starting to acquire that gift. So because humanity now is lifting its consciousness. I mentioned that Archangel Michael, the regent of this work of the Earth's consciousness right now, of its evolution, for the next 300 years, has risen. It's risen in another plane. Well, in the plane that Archangel Michael has inhabited, Mars, the beings of Mars, have come. Archangel Samuel, the fallen angels, they didn't fall. They sacrificed themselves so we could enter into material form. They just forgot a little bit. Everything veils. Everything's covered with layers here. But that's all being unlayered. These beings, these elevated beings from Mars have been freed. They've been lifted because humanity now is capable of taking responsibility for their evolution, their spiritual evolution. So that means we become active participants in our choices. And what better choice than create this philosopher's stone and turn everything dark, thick, lifeless, heavy, into life, creative life, love, joy, enthusiasm, etc. So I invite you all to consider that. So about a week ago, I was thinking about this little offering, and I received a song that I would like to share the lyrics to. Would you permit me? So it's called Awaken. When will each one awaken to the essence of creation, that we can choose our reality to no longer reflect duality, yet allow the divinity within each one to shine and radiate as the rising sun. Let us all awaken from this long, long night, rise with gratitude in our hearts, living within the eternal light. When will we see each moment filled with peace, overflowing, that no longer war, devastation are on earth as our children are born? We can build another future where each one truly receives respect, kindness, and goodness. Can we just really believe? Let us all awaken from this long, long night and rise with gratitude in our hearts, living within the eternal light. When will we hear the laughter, the songs resounding everywhere? That no longer hatred, separation, no longer it is shared. The words of comfort on the lips in every way, expressing our diversity, coming together to play. Let us all awaken from this long, long night, rise with gratitude in our hearts, living within the eternal light. When will each one awaken to the essence of creation? That we can choose our reality to no longer reflect duality, yet allow the divinity within each one to shine and radiate as the rising sun. Rise with the gratitude in our hearts, living within the eternal light. Let us all awaken. So I'd like to thank you all for your attention, for your presence, for your love, for the deepness of your commitment to life, to the transformation within yourselves and in all your brothers and sisters here on earth. And may you forever be blessed. And if you have any questions, comments, interweaves, this is your time. Mahalo, which means thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, for weaving together these really difficult, profound, eternal concepts. Like you say, when Rudolf Steiner speaks, he always goes to the origin of creation when he answers most questions, especially related to the agricultural course. And how do you see the 500 and the 501 working together in the garden?
Question. Answer. The question of 500, of course, in it, how we work with it, first of all, is, of course, we make it ourselves if we can. So if we have cows on our land, we know through the work of the elementals what's going on. If we don't, okay, we need to procure or get cow manure. We need to get a cow horn, and we need to bury that during the month of Scorpio, of November. Of this, what do they call it in French? Crozet, test tube, or you know what I mean, lambic. Sabrina, yeah, you know what I mean. She knows what I mean.
The container, the glass container.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we need to create that which Scorpio does. It accepts everything. Everything. And so it takes that cow manure, and then 6 months afterwards, we have the possibility to work with it. You see, or 5 months. And as we work with this 500, first of all, by stirring, we connect it to the Christ consciousness, to this solar entity that has entered deep, deep, deep into the center of the earth. So in our garden, this is what we're doing. The garden isn't a thing, it's a living being, it's a portal. So working concretely with our garden is our consideration to our relationship to the garden. And then obviously it becomes our consideration to the food and the flowers and the beauty and life. Everything changes. Everything changes how we consider things. And so through our consideration, then the actual 500 is able to work even greater. So by putting the 500 during the sunset, completely the opposite than 501, during when the arc of the moon, when the moon is going through its 6th sign period from Scorpio to Taurus, so it's in a completely different energetics, you see? It's working with this unconsciousness and bringing this unconsciousness up to the surface of the earth to receive light. Humanity and our garden and our food is dark. It needs light. And if we can introduce light into our food, we'll be happier. Is it a good thing to be happy, Sabrina? Do you like being happy?
It's a good thing to be alive and present and saying yes to everything that comes towards us in a way that we can be transformers and be centered enough to invite the possibility for life.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. See how with Sabrina we've known each other for so long? She doesn't even react to my teasing. She stays within her essence. She couldn't care less. She's like my dog, you know. I tease him all the time. He looks at me and goes, when are you finished? When you're finished, we can communicate together. So thank you, Sabrina. And this is what I love about her.
Thank you, Richard. And my dear friend Kriya is here, and she would like to ask you a question also.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. I so appreciate your words and wisdom and practice. What's alive in me right now, coming to the surface, is you mentioned about the veins of gold within the darkness of that stone, of the philosopher's stone, and you also mentioned how that occurred. I believe I might be not remembering correctly. However, was it the essence of Christ going into the earth that made the rays of gold through all of density? Like, can you explain a little bit more
Yes.
about the gold? And the reason I'm asking this is because when we're stirring, when we're vortexing our 500 and our 501, in my imagination, I'm calling for a seed of inspiration from your words that, for me particularly, has something to do with the gold within the earth, the deep, rich gold within the earth, somehow bonding and mixing with the light of the sun and the light within our hearts. And so, does this make any sense at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your question is extremely clear. So let's look at the big picture briefly. that in the Joshua ben Joseph, the Christ mystical and cosmic story, that this consciousness being born was visited by extraordinary elevated beings, one in which was gold. So this gold is coming directly from regions that are extremely elevated and was able to come into humanity during the incarnation of the earth as the sun. Okay? So this is how gold manifested for the first time in our human consciousness. So when I'm speaking like this, I've never said these words before, obviously, so I can say that the spirit of Rudolf Steiner is speaking through me. I'm not saying what I'm saying is true. I can only say that I've never said this before. That's the only thing I can say. So as this spirit of gold concretized itself, these beings, these luminous beings in the sun, we acquired particles of that. We did, human beings. Those particles are in us, in our etheric, in our astral energies, in our soul consciousness. And as the incarnation of the earth coagulated and entered into its next incarnation in the moon, this etheric astral light that has its ability to receive and record everything that takes place, everything. That's its ability. It holds memory. It solidified and became liquid form and ran through like the blood in our bodies, which are filled with iron. Yet that iron now is being transformed into gold. You see, that's our work. That's the work of the Philosopher's Stone. We're leaving the sphere of moon consciousness and regaining once again the origin of this gold coming into the sun. And it needs to pass by our blood, the carrier of our soul, personal soul memory, and obviously that enters into our universal memory. So as this journey continued to coagulate and entered into the physicality of the earth, more or less as we know it, it became the actual veins, solid veins in the earth. What do we know about that? What we know about that is where the gold was the most, let's say in the United States, was the heart of the Atlantean civilization. The heart. Can you imagine? So this is what we're capturing now. We're reawaking our Atlantean memory to repair the deviation, the mistakes of identifying a little bit too much with our thoughts. A little bit too much, that's all. And entering a little bit more into our heart. So this deviation of once again saying, oh, well, we can manipulate anything we want. We can deform anything we want. We're in control. Obviously, life is showing us that we're not really in control. So this is, I hope I clarified something in this. In 501, we have the possibility to activate the gold in our blood. The seeds in our blood. Does this make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I like that.
Well, incredible, Richard. Thank you so much for distilling your whole life experience into our questions.
You're welcome. And
Is there,
what would
we'll
be
have maybe one more question?
Okay.
Is there someone out there who has a question they would like Richard to respond to?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Suyan.
First of all, thank you, Richard. That's so beautiful and so deep. I also think it's like such a synchronicity that the daily meditation of the master talked about gold this morning. So that's my consciousness. But you also mentioned the fallen angels.
Ooh.
And I was wondering if Master Ivanov talk about them, and are they connected with this period of time, and how?
So, did the Master Ivanov talk about them? Yes. Did he talk about them the way I'm mentioning? You could say yes and no. I take a large freedom in my abilities to imagine the seeds that these spiritual teachers, these spiritual masters have planted within me. And I have confidence in them. So when I call the fallen angels, I'm calling them fallen because that's the way humanity has treated creation. There's a good and bad. We're plunged within duality. In reality, in my experience, that these fallen angels accepted to enter into an environment that was extremely difficult for humanity to adapt to, physical form. And it created disturbances, like if you put a stick in the water, it deforms when you look at it. Well, this is the fallen angels are, you could say, our consciousness from the angelic realms became deformed. The Master Omar Mikhail Ivanov said that the most elevated beings, when they come and incarnate on earth, they have to start all over again. Their apprenticeship is quicker because they understand things a little bit quicker than us. Yet they have to start over. That's the nature of physical form. It veils. Well, what's happening now with this new age of Aquarius, we're coming out of the deformation of physicality and entering more consciously into the ethers where things will be less deformed. So children, souls coming in now, because of the work of World Off Education, because of the work of so many souls and the parents that are consciously creating environments to receive these souls, they're coming in with less deformation. So that's how I would treat the fallen angels. And Rudolf Steiner and Omar Mikhail Ivanov talked a great deal about this descent into form, and they gave different aspects that are very different from what I said, and that's okay with me. And at the same time, my relationship to creation is benevolent, even though there are things that go on that are horrifying and that are difficult and destructive, not only in human consciousness, but as far as forces go. Yet I feel 100% in my being, on a soul level, that we live in a benevolent universe. Did I answer your question?
You gave me a lot to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. And dear friends, if you have a topic that you think you would like to suggest to Richard to present in the future, please, you can either put it in the chat box for me to read, or you can email me directly, or Kriya if you got the message through Kriya, or email Richard if you got the message for this Zoom call through Richard. And we'll see see how this incredible weaving of cosmos and earth through the stewardship of the land can grow.
Thank you. And Sabrina, I have a request for you and your group. If you can send me pictures or just your personal experiences of your ceremony that you're going to do with 501, I would just be overjoyed to receive it. And I'll send you, of course, when we do certain activities, I'll now send you a little bit more of our things. I'd like to invite you, if you would like to enter into a period of deepening during the West Sac ceremonies. That could be a possibility. We're in tropical astrology. It's on the 1st of May. And we do full moon and new moon ceremonies here on Kauai, my wife and I. And we always consecrate this to the sun and the moon and the astrological signs in which they're living in, and give spiritual qualities. So we feel this is extremely important, and we celebrate also the equinoxes and solstices and give a particular attention to these 4 periods of the Earth's voyage around the sun. So
thank you so much, Richard. And maybe we can start a little email, an email thread for others to benefit too from these practices. We have one hand up by Denicia Lux, who's been waiting so patiently. Denicia, go ahead. Please unmute. There.
Hi, I got this in my mailbox, and I was reading this book from Om Ram, The Sexual Force of the Winged Dragon, and it talks about the lower form of our life force through sexuality, and then the higher form of that. And I can say that I've been on a personal journey, and I was given the name Lotus Love, which means coming from the dark into the light. And I changed my name from Locked to Lux because I felt locked in this lifetime. Yeah, literally. So it's Lux for light. And I was literally rebuilding my photography website as you were talking about light, and I very much resonate with this idea of our evolution and have devoted my life to that rather than having children. And I've traveled and I've been on the islands and stuff like that. So I love to hear that you're still on the islands. Right now I'm in Northern California. So I guess my request, or my, what I would like to hear more is about a little bit what you were talking about with Suyon, is about our journey nowadays as individuals from the darkness into the light.
Beautiful.
Like the lotus flower from that seed into that evolutionary space.
Beautiful.
That's like what I'm on the journey for, and I know a lot of us are, and now I want to root people on. That's my business.
Beautiful. So
hear more about you.
that's beautiful. So our soul lives in different planes of consciousness, and they're known as, we can call them different things, but unconscious, subconscious, conscious, self-conscious, and then superconscious. So our journey is to descend into our unconsciousness, because in our unconsciousness all our memory is stored. All the layers, exactly like if you go into the Southwest and you look at the Hopi lands and you go into these caverns and you see the geological layers. Welcome to our unconsciousness.
Yes.
And those are all layers of our lifetime. So just think how many layers we can explore. And in each one of these layers, there's a memory, an essence, a purpose in which we can either rejoice, reassimilate, and give it its new expression, or heal, go deeper in through forgiveness, understanding, and pardon of others, in which we can reestablish our sovereignty of our soul action here on earth. If not, we're governed through this unconsciousness and pulled in all different directions, but since it's unconscious, we don't know. We just feel it. You see, our subconscious, it feels. So that's how I would introduce this subject of going deeper. Going deeper is the work of 500. The work of 500 is on clay, you see. This we need to give it a form. But to give it a form, it needs to become supple. Anyone who has worked in clay soil, when it doesn't have humidity, good luck. It's chunky. It's more chunky than any chunky peanut butter you've eaten in your life. And Sabrina knows how much I love eating peanut butter with ice cream. So chunky peanut butter is nothing compared to dried out clay soil. And if it's too wet, oh boy, all your tractors, I don't know how many tractors I've stuck because I was very willful, very, very willful. And so the work of 500 is creating with clay a possibility of rendering the earth flexible, receptive. And we need to do that within ourselves to penetrate into our unconsciousness. We can't force ourselves. Thank you, suffering. Suffering is the means for human consciousness to create flexibility to enter into the unconsciousness. Did I answer your question?
I think you gave me some food for thought for sure.
For all of us, and maybe we can think about a future conversation about this reciprocation between the dark unconscious and the light superconsciousness.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this circle of inspiration to hold Richard in his deliverance.
I just want to say one more thing
more than an hour all out of his heart and his inspiration.
Just one more thing, Sabrina, for Denise there. Denise, as a homework assignment in your question, contemplate the tarot card number 14, Temperance. Okay?
Okay. That one comes up so much. Okay, great, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Sabrina. Go ahead.
Maybe we'll all contemplate that, since this is the last picture really that we are ending on. And I would like to offer a verse before we say goodbye. Victorious spirit, flame through the impotence of irresolute souls. Burn out the egotism. Ignite the compassion. That selflessness, the life stream of humanity, may well up as the source of spirit rebirth. Thank you, everybody.
Awaken and arise, awaken, for now is the time to receive the golden rays of the sun. Awaken and